Her name is Maya, in her early 30s, sits in a comfortable, warmly lit living room. It feels like her own space, peaceful and curated. She speaks directly to the camera, a thoughtful, reflective expression on her face. There's a piece of advice people give you when you're getting married. They smile knowingly and say, "Remember, you're not just marrying the person, you're marrying their whole family." We all nod and agree, but I don't think we ever really understand the weight of those words. We imagine a few awkward holidays, a couple of mismatched personalities, maybe a weird uncle who drinks a bit too much. We don't imagine a quiet, undeclared war fought with backhanded compliments and weaponized memories. We don't imagine that the family we're supposed to be joining will see our marriage not as a new branch on the family tree, but as a hostile takeover that must be thwarted at all costs. My husband, Ben, is a good man. When I say that, I mean it with every fiber of my being. He's kind, he's steady, and his laugh feels like coming home. Our beginning was the stuff of romantic comedies. We met when we were seated next to each other on a flight that was delayed for 3 hours on the tarmac. Instead of frustration, we found a conversation that felt endless. We talked about everything and nothing. By the time the plane finally took off, I felt like I'd known him my whole life. He called me the next day, and we were inseparable after that. Our love story was simple, easy. It was to people finding their other half. We built our own little world, a bubble filled with inside jokes, shared dreams, and a deep, unwavering trust. I remember one night, about a year in, I was flattened by the flu. I was a miserable, feverish mess. Ben not only went out in the pouring rain at 10 p.m. to get me medicine, but he also came back and read my favorite childhood book out loud to me until I fell asleep. It wasn't a grand, romantic gesture, but it was everything. It was care, it was partnership. We were a team. And for the first 2 years, our bubble felt impenetrable. I was naive enough to believe that our love alone was strong enough to withstand anything. I had never met his mother. My introduction to Eleanor and Robert Miller was a formal dinner at their immaculate, magazine-perfect home. It was the kind of house where everything was a shade of beige and the pillows on the couch looked like they were never meant to be sat on. Eleanor was tall and elegant, dressed in a silk blouse with a smile that was technically perfect but never quite reached her eyes. Robert, her husband, was quiet and pleasant. He seemed to exist in the gravitational pull of his wife, a silent cosigner on all her opinions, smiling when she smiled, nodding when she spoke. I was a ball of nerves. I had changed my outfit 3 times, brought a ridiculously expensive bottle of wine, and rehearsed my talking points like I was preparing for a job interview. I wanted so desperately for them to like me, to see what their wonderful son saw in me. Maya. What a unique name, Eleanor said as she took the wine from me, her eyes doing a swift, professional appraisal of my dress. It's lovely to finally meet you, Ben has told us. So much about you. The pause was tiny, almost imperceptible, but it was there. It was a space where words like "and we're so happy we're supposed to be," and their absence was deafening. The dinner was a masterclass in subtle digs, each one wrapped in the guise of a compliment. When I mentioned my recent promotion at the marketing firm where I worked, Eleanor smiled that thin, bloodless smile. "Oh, a career woman. How very modern," she said, dabbing her lips with a linen napkin. "It must be so difficult for Ben, having to fend for himself for dinner so often. He's used to a proper home-cooked meal every night." I tried to laugh it off, to bring Ben back to my side. "Oh, Ben's a great cook. He does more of the cooking than I do. Honestly. He makes a killer lasagna." Eleanor's perfectly sculpted eyebrow shot up. She looked at Ben as if I wasn't there. "Really, Benjamin, you, in the kitchen? How things have changed. Your father has never had to cook a single meal in 40 years of marriage. A man's work is outside the home." Ben just gave an uncomfortable shrug, trying to de-escalate. "Mom, times are different. Besides, Maya's an amazing cook when she has the time." "If one has the time, I suppose," Eleanor mused, already moving on, leaving the implication hanging in the air that I was failing at my wifely duties. The rest of the night was the same. Every topic was a chance to highlight how different I was from them, from what they expected. I left that night feeling like I had just failed an exam I didn't even know I was taking. In the car on the way home, I tried to voice my unease to Ben. Your mom seems a little intense, I said carefully. That's just her way, he said immediately, a hint of defensiveness in his voice. She's from a different generation, that's all. She just wants to make sure I'm being taken care of. She warm up to you, you just have to give it time. And I believed him. I wanted to believe him. So I decided to try harder. That became my mantra for the next year, a phrase that would echo in my head as things got progressively worse. Just try harder. After we got married, the campaign to undermine me began in earnest. Eleanor's suggestions became more frequent and more intrusive. She had a key to our house, for emergencies only, she'd said, and used it with alarming regularity. I'd come home from work to find our fridge full of pre-made meals in Tupperware containers, each labeled in her neat, spiky handwriting. A note on the counter would read, "Just so my Benny has a real meal to eat." One Saturday, she came over while I was attempting a recipe from a new cookbook. She walked into the kitchen, sniffed the air, and immediately took over. "Oh, sweetie, no, 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 you're using far too much garlic. That's not how Benny likes his sauce at all. Here, let me show you." Before I could protest, she had nudged me aside, taken the spoon from my hand, and was adding her own ingredients, correcting my work as if I were a clumsy child. I ended up just standing there in my own kitchen, a guest at my own stove, feeling utterly humiliated. When Ben came in and saw her cooking, he just smiled. "Oh, cool, Mom's making her famous bolognese." He was completely oblivious to the power play that had just occurred. My career became another battleground. I loved my job. I was good at it. But to Eleanor, my ambition was a flaw. I landed a huge account at work, the biggest of my career. I was ecstatic. We went to his parents for dinner that weekend, and I couldn't wait to share the good news. After I told them, Robert gave a polite well done, but Eleanor just looked at me with a concerned frown. "Well, I hope you're not taking on too much and neglecting your husband," she said. "A man needs his wife to be present. That's the most important job a woman has." She said it as if she was imparting some ancient, sacred wisdom. She was framing my success as a direct threat to my marriage. The most potent weapon in her arsenal, however, was a ghost. Her name was Sarah. Sarah was Ben's college girlfriend, the one he dated for 4 years, the one everyone, including the Millers, thought he was going to marry. And according to Eleanor, Sarah was Mother Teresa, Julia Child, and a supermodel all rolled into one. Sarah's name was dropped into conversation with surgical precision. If I bought a new plant for our apartment, Eleanor would sigh and say, "Oh, that's nice." You know, Sarah had the most incredible green thumb. Ben's old apartment was like a jungle paradise because of her. There were still framed photos in their house of family vacations that included a smiling blonde Sarah. When I once gently asked Ben if maybe, now that we were married, they could be put away, he got defensive. "They're just pictures, Maya. It's part of my history. You're being insecure." I was being made to compete with a memory, a ghost I could never live up to because, in their minds, she was perfect. The haunting became a reality that Christmas. We were at his parents' annual, ostentatious Christmas Eve party. I was mingling, trying my best to fit in. I walked into the living room to get a drink, and there she was, standing next to the fireplace, laughing with Eleanor, Sarah, in the flesh. She was even more beautiful than in the pictures. I froze. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Ben came up behind me, a drink in his hand, and saw the look on my face. He followed my gaze, and a flash of pure panic crossed his features. "Oh my God," he muttered. "I had no idea, I swear." Eleanor glided over, her face a mask of delighted surprise. "Maya, look who it is." Sarah was in town visiting her parents, and I simply insisted she stop by. "We haven't seen her in ages. Isn't this a wonderful surprise?" Her eyes were gleaming with triumph. This wasn't a surprise. It was an ambush. The rest of a night was a special kind of torture. I had to watch my mother-in-law treat my husband's ex-girlfriend like the guest of honor. Sarah, to her credit, seemed mostly oblivious and was perfectly pleasant to me, which almost made it worse. It made me feel like the crazy, jealous new wife. I spent most of the party in a quiet corner of the kitchen, nursing a glass of wine and feeling like a complete outsider in my own life. The car ride home was thick with a silence that felt heavier than any argument. I was waiting for him to say something, anything, to acknowledge the cruelty of what his mother had done. He said nothing. "Why didn't you say something?" I finally asked, my voice shaking. "Say what, Maya? What did you want me to do? Flip over the Christmas tree and kick her out? It would have been a huge scene. I wanted you to defend me. I wanted you to show your mother that you and I are a unit, and what she did was not okay. She did it to humiliate me, then to show me that Sarah will always be there, that I'll never be good enough. You're being paranoid, Maya," he said, his voice weary. And that single phrase felt like a betrayal sharper than any knife. "You're insecure, so you're seeing malice where there isn't any. They are my parents, they love me. They would not intentionally try to hurt us." That was the moment I realized the true depth of the problem. The problem wasn't just Eleanor. It was that my husband, my partner, my protector, was so deep in the fog of denial that he couldn't see the war being waged against his own wife. He thought I was the source of the conflict, not his mother. After that, Eleanor's tactics became more covert. She started a campaign of creating secrets. She called Ben when she knew I was at the gym or out with friends. He would retreat into the bedroom to take the calls and emerge an hour later looking stressed and withdrawn. When I'd ask what they talked about, he'd give vague, evasive answers. "Oh, nothing, just family stuff." I once overheard part of a call. I heard Ben's strained voice, "Mom, that's not fair. No, she didn't say that. Please don't put me in the middle of this." He hung up, and when he saw me standing in the doorway, he lied. He said it was a work call. The lie was so blatant, so clumsy, it terrified me. She was successfully turning my husband into someone who would lie to my face to avoid confronting her. I felt like I was losing my mind. I was anxious all the time, second-guessing myself, replaying conversations to see if I'd said something wrong. I even planned an elaborate 60th birthday party for Eleanor, thinking I could win her over with a grand gesture of love. I spent weeks organizing it. On the night of the party, she gave a speech and thanked everyone, but singled out Sarah, who was there, of course, for helping her feel young again. She never mentioned my name once. Our marriage was crumbling. The man I loved was still there, but he was buried under layers of guilt, obligation, and denial. He saw me as the cause of his stress, not the victim of his mother's campaign. We fought constantly. One night, during a particularly bad fight, I told him I couldn't do it anymore. I packed a bag and went to stay with my sister. I told him I wouldn't come back until he could see that we were a team and that his mother was actively trying to tear us apart. That week apart was the lowest point of my life. I truly believed it was the end. Then called me a few days later, begging me to come to a counseling session. He sounded broken, I agreed. It was in that neutral, quiet room that he finally admitted he saw a pattern, but he still couldn't bring himself to call it what it was: sabotage. The therapy helped, but we were still treading water. It took one final, breathtakingly cruel act from his mother to finally pull him out of the fog for good. We had been trying for a baby for over a year. It was a silent, heartbreaking struggle filled with hope and disappointment. It was the one deeply personal, vulnerable part of our life that we kept completely to ourselves. We decided not to tell anyone. It was ours. One Sunday, we were at his parents' house for the obligatory dinner. I was quiet, nursing the fresh pain of another negative pregnancy test that morning. In the middle of dinner, Eleanor looked at me, her face a mask of cloying sympathy. "You know, Maya," she said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "I was on the phone with Sarah the other day. My blood ran cold. She's pregnant with her second child." "A little boy," Eleanor announced, beaming. "She is just the most wonderful mother, so maternal, so nurturing. It just seems to come so naturally to some women. It's such a shame when others have to struggle." The world stopped, the clinking of forks, the quiet chatter, it all faded away. She knew. She knew about our struggle. I looked at Ben, and on his face was a portrait of pure, unadulterated horror. I knew instantly. He had told her. In a moment of weakness, needing his mom, he had shared our most private, sacred pain. And she, without hesitation, had picked it up and used it as a weapon against me, twisting it with the ghost of Sarah to inflict the maximum possible pain. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange, cold calm washed over me. I placed my napkin on the table, stood up, pushed my chair in, and said, "I'm going home." I walked out the front door, got in my car, and drove away, not caring if he followed. He came home an hour later. I was in our bedroom, pulling a suitcase from the closet. This time, it wasn't a threat, it was a necessity. I couldn't breathe the same air as the man who had handed his mother the knife she used to gut me. "Maya, please," he said, his voice broken. "Please don't." There was nothing left to say. "Ben," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "She has been trying to destroy this marriage since the day she met me. And you have let her. You stood by and let her. You handed her our most private pain so she could use it on me. There was no coming back from that." "I know," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "You were right. You were right about everything." He finally told me what happened after I left. He had finally, explosively, confronted them. He screamed. He cried. He laid out every single act of sabotage, every lie, every comparison to Sarah, culminating in her vicious comment at the dinner table. His father, as always, sat in stunned silence, but Eleanor had fought back. "I only ever wanted what was best for you, Benjamin." She shrieked at him. "She is not right for you. She has made you weak. She is not one of us. Sarah would have given you a happy life, a real family." And hearing her finally say it all out loud without any pretense or subtlety was what it took. The fog was gone, burned away by the fire of her raw hatred for me. Ben looked at his mother and saw her for exactly who she was. He told her, his voice low and shaking with rage, that I was his wife, his partner, and the only family he cared about. He told her that until she could look him in the eye and give a sincere, meaningful apology to me, not to him, but to me, she was dead to him. He walked out and left his key to their house on the table. He chose me. He finally, unequivocally, chose us. The road back was long. It wasn't enough that he had seen the light. The damage was done. We committed to our counseling sessions. We had to learn how to be a team again. Ben had to learn how to untangle his identity from his mother's, and I had to learn how to trust him again. For 6 months, there was complete silence from his parents. Then a letter arrived, addressed to me. It was from Eleanor. It was a stilted, awkward, but direct apology. There were no excuses. She apologized for trying to undermine our marriage, for the things she said, and for the pain she caused. She said she was afraid of losing her son and acted monstrously. It wasn't perfect, but it was accountability. We decided, together, to allow them back into our lives, but with boundaries of steel. We see them a few times a year on our terms. The visits are short and always in public places. There are no more unannounced drop-ins, no more suggestions, no more secrets. The name Sarah is never spoken. They know that one wrong move will result in the door being closed, this time for good. 2 years ago, after we had healed ourselves and our marriage, I got pregnant. When we told Ben's parents, Eleanor cried. This time, they look like real tears. When I hold our daughter, Lily, I know that she will be raised in a home free from manipulation and quiet wars. Her family circle is one of love and respect because her parents fought to make it that way. We didn't just get married. We survived a war, we rebuilt from the ashes. And we learned that the only family worth having is the one you choose and the one you protect, together. There's a quiet rhythm to a life that has been rebuilt. 4 years after we established our boundaries with Ben's parents, our life took on that peaceful, predictable tempo. It was a life built not on grand, dramatic events, but on 1,000 small moments of trust. It was Ben, unprompted, forwarding me a terse email from his mother with the simple note, "FYI, I'll handle this." It was me, seeing a missed call from her on his phone and feeling a sense of calm instead of a jolt of panic, because I knew without a shadow of a doubt, that we were a team. Our bubble, once so fragile, had been replaced by a fortress. A fortress built of shared experience, difficult conversations, and a hard-won lesson that our little family, me, Ben, and our daughter, Lily, was the only one that truly mattered. Lily grew up in the calm eye of this carefully managed storm. Our relationship with Eleanor and Robert was civil but distant, like a treaty between two nations that had once been at war. We saw them 4, maybe 5 times a year, always on neutral ground, a park, a restaurant, a museum. The visits were short, polite, and always supervised. Eleanor, to her credit, seemed to understand the fragility of the truce. She was on her best behavior, her compliments were genuine, and the ghost of Sarah was finally, blessedly, laid to rest. The peace was real, it was stable, and I made the mistake of thinking it would last forever. The first tremor occurred just before Lily's 5th birthday. She was a bright, funny, imaginative little girl who loved dinosaur nuggets and painting rainbows. We were planning a small party for her in our backyard, a bouncy castle, a handful of her little friends from preschool, and a homemade cake. It was meant to be simple, joyful, and entirely for her. A week before the party, Ben got a call from his mother. I was in the kitchen, and I saw his posture stiffen. His voice, which was usually warm and relaxed, became clipped and formal. "No, Mom, that's not going to work for us," he said. There was a pause. "I understand you're excited, but we already have plans." Another, longer pause, during which I could almost hear the sound of Eleanor's manipulative tears through the phone. "It's not about keeping her from you. It's about what we, as her parents, have decided is best for her birthday. We could see you the following weekend for lunch to celebrate." He ended the call and let out a long, weary sigh. He looked at me. "Mom just called to inform me that she has booked the private room at the Grand City Country Club for Lily's 5th birthday party. She's hired a magician and a caterer and has already sent out invitations to all of her friends and the extended family." I just stared at him, the dish towel in my hands feeling heavy. She hadn't asked. She hadn't suggested. After years of peace, she had just launched a full-scale invasion, a blatant attempt to hijack our daughter's birthday and reclaim her matriarchal power. Ben handled it. He called her back and shut it down, firmly but politely. He dealt with the emotional fallout, the accusations of him being ungrateful, of us isolating our child from her real family. I was proud of him. He did exactly what a partner should do. But the incident unsettled me. It was a declaration. The old war was over, but a new one, a battle for Lily, was just beginning. After her birthday coup was thwarted, Eleanor's tactics shifted. She began a campaign of love-bombing Lily. Packages started arriving at our door almost daily. Extravagant, expensive, and wildly inappropriate gifts. A 5-foot-tall dollhouse that wouldn't fit in Lily's room. A child-sized, battery-powered luxury car. Designer dresses that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Each gift came with a note: "For my precious princess, because Grandma loves you more than anything." The gifts weren't for Lily. They were weapons aimed at us. They were designed to do 2 things. First, to position Grandma as the magical, endlessly generous source of all things wonderful, and second, to put Ben and me in the position of being the villains. We had a firm rule about not spoiling Lily, about teaching her the value of things. These gifts flagrantly disregarded our parenting. When we tried to explain to a tearful Lily why she couldn't keep the pony-sized stuffed unicorn, we became the bad guys. "But Grandma gave it to me," she'd wail, and in her innocent mind, our reasons were just cruel. We were the gatekeepers of fun, and Grandma was a fairy godmother. The undermining became more direct during our infrequent visits. We were at a park, and I had told Lily she couldn't have ice cream because she hadn't eaten her lunch. 10 minutes later, I saw Eleanor sneaking her back from the ice cream truck, a cone of dripping pink ice cream in her hand. "Eleanor, what are you doing?" I asked, my voice tight with controlled anger. "Oh, lighten up, Maya," she said with a dismissive wave of her hand, loud enough for Lily to hear. "It's just a little treat. You're so strict with her." A grandmother's job is to spoil her grandchildren. She was drawing a line in the sand, creating 2 teams in my daughter's mind, Team Fun Grandma versus Team Strict Mommy. She was teaching my child that my rules were optional, that my authority could be appealed to a higher, more indulgent court. Ben immediately stepped in. Mom, we are going home right now. We talked about this. You do not undermine Maya's parenting. You just broke a major rule. The visit ended, but the damage was done. Lily cried the whole way home, not understanding why Daddy was mad at Grandma for giving her ice cream. The most insidious part of Eleanor's new campaign was the narrative she was trying to build. She began to tell Lily stories about the Miller family, emphasizing traditions, history, and heirlooms, all of which, of course, came from their side. She was trying to claim Lily, to brand her as a Miller, as if I were just an incubator for her legacy. The final straw, the moment I knew we had to make a drastic change, came on a rainy Saturday afternoon. We had just come from a visit with them. Lily was in her room, supposed to be playing. I walked past and heard her talking to her dolls. I smiled, pausing to listen. No, Dolly, you can't wear that dress, Lily said in a stern little voice. That's not a Miller dress. Grandma says we have to look like a proper family. Then I heard her whisper to another doll. It's okay. Mommy is just different. She doesn't understand our family, but Grandma will fix it. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. My 5-year-old daughter was reciting my mother-in-law's toxic propaganda. Eleanor was not just spoiling her, she was actively trying to poison my daughter against me. She was gaslighting a child, teaching her that her own mother was an outsider, a problem to be fixed. The war was no longer about my marriage, it was about my daughter's soul. That night, after Lily was asleep, I sat down with Ben. I told him what I had heard, my voice breaking with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. For the first time, Ben didn't offer to handle it. He just listened, his face pale, his hands clenched into fists. This is my fault, he said, his voice raw. I kept thinking we could manage them. I kept thinking that keeping the peace with these little visits was better than a full-blown war. But they've been fighting a war all along. We just haven't been fighting back hard enough. We sat at our dining room table until after midnight, not as a husband and wife in crisis, but as the generals planning a counteroffensive. We were united in our purpose to protect Lily. We realized that our current strategy of limited, supervised contact was not working. Eleanor was using every tiny crack we gave her to wedge herself in and pour her poison through. The treaty was broken. We needed a firewall. A few days later, we met Eleanor and Robert at a neutral cafe. We had told them we needed to have a serious conversation about Lily. Eleanor came in looking defensive, ready for a fight. Robert just looked tired. Ben spoke first, his voice calm and firm, a voice I had never heard him use with his parents before. Mom, Dad, he began, we love you, but our number one priority, above all else, is the physical and emotional well-being of our daughter. We have tried for years to find a way to have a relationship with you that is healthy for her. And we have come to the conclusion that at this time, that is not possible. He laid it all out, the gifts, the undermining of our parenting, the manipulative stories. He told them what Lily had said, how their actions were actively confusing her and damaging her relationship with her own mother. You have put us in a position where we have to choose between protecting our child's emotional health and maintaining a relationship with you, I said, picking up where Ben left off. And if that is a choice, it's not a choice at all. We will always choose Lily. Ben delivered the final blow. Therefore, we are taking a complete and total break from all visits and communication for the next 6 months. No calls, no packages, no visits. At the end of that 6 months, we will reevaluate. But something has to change drastically. This is not a negotiation. Eleanor's composure finally cracked, her face contorted with rage and disbelief. You would keep my only grandchild from me? She hissed. After everything I've done for her? For you. This is her. Maya has poisoned you against your own mother. No, Mom, Ben said, his voice full of a sad finality. Maya didn't poison me. You did. Your actions did. This is a consequence. We stood up and left them there. Walking away felt both terrifying and liberating. We had finally built the firewall. The ensuing months were quiet, painfully quiet at times. Ben grieved for the relationship he wished he had with his parents. But through it all, we leaned on each other. We were a rock-solid unit. We explained to Lily in simple, age-appropriate terms that Grandma and Grandpa needed a little time out because they weren't being good at following rules, and that we would see them again someday. During that 6-month break, our own little family flourished. Our home, free from the constant undercurrent of external tension, was peaceful. Lily blossomed, secure in the consistency of our parenting. She forgot the confusing narratives and just remembered that Mommy and Daddy were her team. At the end of the 6 months, Ben reached out to his parents. They had a tentative, mediated conversation. It seems the shock and the silence had finally broken through some of their denial. The relationship we have with them now is even more limited, but it's healthier. Visits are rare and are focused entirely on Lily having a pleasant, conflict-free time. The first sign of a boundary being pushed and the visit is over, Eleanor knows we are not bluffing. The other night, I was tucking Lily into bed. She wrapped her arms around my neck and whispered, "You're the best mommy in the whole world," and in that moment, I knew we had won. Not against Eleanor, but for Lily. We had fought to create a world for her where she feels safe, loved, and secure in her own family. True family isn't about blood or last names. It's about the safe harbor you build together and the fierce, unwavering commitment to protect the ones inside it. It's the family you fight for, and ours, finally, was at peace.